welcome back everybody to the week 7, I guess now week 8, or episode 7, 8, I don't remember, of the Beltway Wars Invitational podcast, with your host as always, Adam Jackson, with me again after a week hiatus, Patrick Wheelton. Say hello.
Hello, good to be back. Long week.
Yeah, long week, buying houses,
Taking
maybe
vacations.
taking vacations. I'm just working and playing with the daughter, but that's boring. But let's get to the non-boring things, which is week 7 recap, and we're gonna get started with Scott versus Dustin here. Willie Westminster Wascals versus Pikesville Prowlers, 157.72 to 130.30. Victory for Dustin now goes to 3-4 on the year. Let's start off with Dustin here, Pat. What did you see when you were looking at this matchup?
Um, Dustin. So Dustin's team is like just been watching kind of the numbers, the projections over the last couple of weeks, and what I've kind of noticed. And every time I look, I keep doing a double take to make sure I'm looking at the right team because Dustin's got some gaudy projections for a team that we thought was going to struggle at the beginning of the year. He's got some players here that have kind of stepped up here. And if I can get my app to go to the correct week, he did put up the most points this week, 157.72. So Dustin is on the rise here. And how was his week 7? So what we always look at with Dustin is the quarterback, right? So Derek Carr gets the start here. Not a great day, under 20 points, but was the best of his 4, 5, or 10 quarterbacks on his bench. So made the right decision there. That's a good start. Didn't get a lot out of Mike Davis at the running back position, but got more than made up for it with DeAndre Swift, who really had a nice day here. Only 13 carries, but caught 8 balls. So this is the theme of this season with these running backs is the carries generally are down across the league for these stud running backs, but they are catching passes. And when you've got a guy like Swift catching 8 balls, going for 96 yards through the air, I mean, that's better than most receivers, and also scored a touchdown through the air. So a big day for him, 24 points. And then obviously had a couple other massive performances here. Jamar Chase continues to be the best rookie wide receiver in the league right now, by far, I would imagine. He's the number 3 wide receiver in fantasy. 30 fantasy points against our Ravens in a game that I don't think we should talk about anymore beyond this right now.
Well, I'll put a disclaimer in there that I was actually at the game, and it
even
was
better.
completely awful. Scott gave me tickets to the game, and I don't think I'm ever getting invited ever. I don't think I'm ever getting invited back to a Ravens game with Scott after that.
I mean, he carves up the Ravens defense for 200 yards through the air, including
shades of AJ Green back in the day.
Yeah, there always seems to be Bengals wide receivers that manage to really stick it to us in any number of ways. So gets a huge day out of Jamar Chase, gets 20-plus point numbers from T.J. McLaurin and from D'Ernest Johnson, doing the savvy thing. He's got Nick Chubb on his team, and knowing that he was going to miss this week, Dustin went out and smartly picked up D'Ernest Johnson, who had a really nice day filling in for both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, who both missed this one. So a nice spot start in the flex helps get Dustin a huge win and moves him to 3-4.
Yeah, just looking at Dustin's team, I mean, very impressive week, 157. I mean, that's nothing to overlook here. In terms of DeAndre Swift here, quietly the number 2 ranked running back in PPR. Last 3 games, 19 points, 15 points, 24 points. Really putting up solid days and really being a X factor in that Lions offense. Going forward, he has to be ranked as a top 5 running back just with the amount of usage that he's getting through the air and on the ground. Looking at Jamar Chase, he might be the best rookie wide receiver of all time right now. I mean, 24, 11, 30 last three games. He's getting the targets. Hasn't had under four in any game. It looks like that the off-season, questions about him not being able to catch the ball, him not being able to see the ball has really been overblown. And Dustin took a risk on him in the draft, and it's paying off handsomely for him. He didn't even, his stars were out. Nick Chubb was out. Kelsey had a pedestrian day. But, with Jamar Chase, Swift, and Terry McLaurin here, when those three are popping off, it's you know it's a hard team, hard mountain to climb if you're going against Dustin.
Yep. Now, before we get off of Dustin, let's just do the thing that we do with him. And next week he has David Carr on or Derek Carr. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that was 10 years ago. Derek Carr is on bye this week, so
Yep.
week 8 he's going to be in starting either Teddy Bridgewater at Cleveland, so that's Broncos at Cleveland, or Jameis Winston. That's Saints at the Seahawks. He's going
No,
to
it's
go
gonna
up
be
against the
Broncos
Seahawks.
at home against Washington,
Oh, I'm looking at this week. Oh, I see.
and it's
Okay.
gonna be Winston at home against Tampa. So two not great matchups there. Um,
Ooh. And do we
if
think Baker's going to be back, or is he going to be?
I don't think. Let's look at his. He's a limited practice on Wednesday, so
So he'll be against Denver, which is also not a great
no, he'll
matchup.
be against Pittsburgh. You're still off one.
Uh, it's been a week. I got to get back into the swing of this. Pittsburgh. That's right. Okay.
So Pittsburgh, Tampa, or Washington. So three tough
Hmm.
defenses, even though Washington's kind of been overblown. I think I'm going with Jameis Winston just because of the shootout factor. He's going to have to throw to keep up with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay offense.
Not really great options here
No.
anywhere. I, I'm gonna be a little bit contrarian. I kind of feel you on Winston. I think maybe I'll just go with Bridgewater just to be different. I
Okay.
think that Washington defense is beatable. It's not the defense that we thought it was coming into the season. They've struggled, and I think Bridgewater has quietly put together some okay performances here.
Right.
13 points, 18 points, 18 points. He's throwing a lot of passes. I think he'll be good in that
All
one.
right. Well, we'll keep track of this, and since it's a running theme of this season, we'll keep track and see if the right decision was made or not, and who made the right decision there. Because that's a little fun to do. Um, but going over to the losing side here, Scott Burnett with a respectable
Mm.
130 points, now going to 3-4 on the season. Disappointing day. Obviously with Chubb out, with a couple other players out, Mayfield probably would have been starting. Chenault, on a bye. You're kind of hoping that Dustin kind of puts in a stinker there, with some of his stars out. Not the case. Um, Great score, but just wasn't enough for Scott this week.
Yeah, and it was we always back when we played ESPN and we had a standard scoring league. Obviously, moving to the half point, it increases some of the scores for individual players this year. But we always used to look, and we used to have an award for uh, a fantasy team that in a given week had all players in double digit fantasy points.
Mm,
And so that was, I don't think it ever happened. I don't think we ever had that. But just looking at Scott's team, he's got all but two. He had Mark Andrews at 6 points and the Panthers at 3 points, but everyone else scored above double figures in
hmm
double digits, but nobody scored over 20. So it's the case of good but not great across the board for Scott this week. 130, as you said, is a respectable score, but he just didn't have that one or two guys that went above and beyond and had a huge day. Everyone had a nice day, but just couldn't quite get the second touchdown or the going over 100 yards and really putting a crooked number on the board. So um, nice to see if you're Scott. It sucks to lose, but to see some of your players perform and get involved in the game, starting two Arizona wide receivers and getting touchdowns out of both of them, both Hopkins and Christian Kirk, each scored this week. Hopkins with 53 yards, Kirk with 50 yards, so getting production there. Same thing. The running backs both getting it done, but only 4 carries for Javonte Williams and only 6 carries for Josh Jacobs. They each scored a touchdown. Javonte Williams came in the air, 6 for 7 receiving, and Jacobs caught three balls for 39 yards. So both of those guys doing it in both ways on the ground and in the air,
Hmm.
putting up 14 points, but looking Ryan Tannehill too, 19 fantasy points. I said a couple weeks ago, I think he's the new Phillip Rivers, that he just cannot get over 20 points. He's only been over 20 once this year. Um, he's consistently in double digits, but hitting that 20 mark has been tough for Tannehill.
Yeah, just looking at the running backs here, Williams and Jacobs, Williams 42% snap count and Jacobs, which is with a surprising 36% snap count. I don't know if he was injured. It looks like that he had a chest contusion on Sunday, so he might have lost time there. You might see
Mm.
his carries being a little more than that. Going in on bye, so nothing to really to worry about there, or you wouldn't think. Um, but going through his team, the interesting play here, starting two tight ends. Mark
Mm.
Andrews at the tight end position and Mike Gesicki at the flex position. You don't really see that too often. And it looks like Gesicki, putting up 18 points in that shootout against Atlanta, very surprising number out of him and, very risky play. A lot of teams can't find one good tight end to play, and it looks like Scott has two. My main question here is with Mark Andrews. You know, I like to call. I had Mark Andrews last year, and I was always frustrated because he would have huge weeks and then he was forgotten about. It seemed in the Ravens offense. I mean, and look at it from week five, 36, the monster number. Week five against the Colts, week six against the Chargers. Had a good day, 15 points. But now against Cincy, which is a prime matchup for tight ends, only 6.3 points. It seems like he sometimes gets forgotten in the Ravens offense, and he's just something that I'm always a little. He reminds me of like Tyreek Hill a little bit, where he can carry you a week, but sometimes he just disappears. He's very boom or bust from the tight end position.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, he's still involved and at the tight end position, which has historically always been kind of a slim position at the top. He's still getting the targets. His low on
Yeah.
the season in week 1 and week 2, he had 5 targets. Since then, he's had 6 or more in each of the last 5 weeks. So his production's going to be there. His floor is not low enough to justify sitting him and missing out on those monster weeks. So he's still a week in, week out tight end. I mean, definitely hear you on giving props to Scott for starting Mike Gesicki. He had a couple other options there that he potentially could have started. I guess Jarvis Landry was the interesting name, but Scott, being the savvy owner that he is, probably thought, Landry coming off of an injury, want to see him get involved in the offense first before you trust him coming back from that injury. Gives Gesicki the start. Gesicki has been really good. He's the number 3 tight end in fantasy right now. He's had 10 or more, 13 or more points in 5 of his last 6 now. So that's huge, and getting massive volume while he's at it. So the
Yeah.
Dolphins are finding a way to use him. So great start. I like that. I think probably you might see him do the same thing. Gesicki will slide into the starting spot next week with Mark Andrews on bye.
Yep. So that's that matchup. Both 3 and 4 now. Both very much in the playoff race. It'll be interesting to see how each of those teams plays out going forward. Going on to our next matchup here of week 7. Let me get back to that really quick here. Let's go to the closest matchup of this week. Alex Eaton versus Tom Fitzhugh. Finsbury question marks takes the loss
Whew.
against Alex Eaton's Owings Mills Oysters, 139.98 to 139.66, right down to the wire here. Let's start on the losing side here with Tom here. Looking at his squad, 139 again, a very very respectable score. It would just seem like there were some things that he might have done better, maybe some starting things. One thing I was looking at is not starting Julio. It didn't really hurt him too badly. It actually didn't hurt him at all. Bateman actually outscored him, and that's the one spot I probably would have him or Ruggs probably would have put in Julio there. Um, but just a very very difficult loss for Tom, who continues to say that he is cursed.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's tough to sit Julio Jones in the end. It was a good decision. He was the lowest of Ruggs, and Bateman, as you said, outscored him, so it worked out for him. This was such a razor thin matchup. I want to point out the projections show that Tom was projected to win this matchup in a razor thin 16 100ths of a point, and ended up losing by 30. What is that? 32 100ths of a point. So
It's like
tough
Sleeper
one
knows what they're
there.
doing with their
It was
projections.
it was projected to be close, and it was super close for sure. Um, yeah, tough one here. I mean, I'm looking at a guy that I Jekyll and Hyde for me, Antonio Gibson, kind of the same way you feel about Mark Andrews. I feel a little bit about Antonio Gibson, and now he's had two consecutive weeks where he has struggled mightily to be efficient in the ground game. He struggled here, and you know the Washington football team did not play well at Green Bay, so that contributes. They were, coming from behind, so maybe that's part of the reason why he just couldn't get anything going. Wasn't getting a ton of volume there. 14 carries, still enough, but just didn't do very much with it. Um, Mike Evans, monster day. Can we talk about Mike Evans for a second? I probably should eat some crow for this one. I was not a fan of Mike Evans coming into the season. I thought the fact that there were so many receivers in Tampa was going to hurt him. And some weeks that may be true, but this one, Antonio Brown was missing. He was out this week, so Evans was back in the spotlight. He had a huge day, 6 for 10, 76 yards, and scored 3 touchdowns as the Bucks routed the Bears 38-3. So Evans was a favorite of Brady's here. He's now the seventh ranked wide receiver. He goes over 10 points often and has hit the 20 point mark 3 times this season. So he is a definitely a wide receiver one. So Tom has to feel good about that, and got the start also for the Buccaneers there. They had that rout of the Bears. He benefited from the Buccaneers defense, 19 fantasy points there. So yeah, I think my concern with this team is just the lack of. Just looking at some of these starters, Elijah Mitchell had a nice game running for the 49ers, but how long is his shelf life going to be in San Francisco with potentially Jeff Wilson coming back in that he still may be 4 to 5 weeks out, but they've got a number of guys there that in any given week, if Mitchell struggles, they could spell him for somebody else on that team. Henry Ruggs starting. It's just a name there that you don't love. He's kind of boomer bust in the same way. He's had a 20 point game, but he's also had 4 games under 8 points. So that's kind of a boomer bust play. So yeah, I would say my concern is just some of the guys. You're seeing some injuries on this team. Julio Jones has struggled with some injuries. Kadarius Toney, who's been struggling with an ankle, and Devontae Parker has kind of been in and out of practice and missed a couple games with an injury. So just a collection of things. Still 139 points is healthy, um, but yeah, another one of these three and four teams that has some weapons but has a couple weak spots.
Right. He got you'd love to come out with this with a win with this one just because he had, Najee Harris out on a bye, he had Emmanuel Sanders on a bye, Kadarius Toney, well, he was just out, it looks like. Um, with such a razor thin margin, you hope just to pull it out there. But looking at his team, he does have some good depth here. Elijah Mitchell at your flex spot, you gotta love that. And with Najee Harris finally being off his bye, that's probably where he's gonna be. So better days ahead, I think, for Tom. Um, it's just, yeah, I think the big concern here is Antonio Gibson. Can he really get the volume share here? There's no reason why he should only have 14 carries. I
Mm.
don't know if that was just game scripts because they got behind quickly, but yeah, he needs to hit that 18 to 20 carry mark to get some volume. Other than that, I mean, his team should be okay. Debo Samuel continues to impress, being the only option in San Francisco in terms of the passing game. So I think there are better days ahead for Tom.
Yeah, one other just red flag I would wave here is
Hmm.
that the tight end position he's currently carrying, I believe, just one tight end in T.J. Hawkinson. Hawkinson is now dealing with an ankle injury and a knee injury. He's limited in practice, and he's the number 4 ranked tight end. But a lot of that is coming off of the strength of his strong weeks 1 and 2. Since week 2, I mean, you're looking at 2 points against the Ravens, 6 points against the Bears, 3 points against the Vikings. Had a nice day, 11 points against Cincinnati, and then 7 points against the Rams. So after two massive weeks to begin the year, he's sort of cooled off. Still getting good volume, but that Lions offense just doesn't seem to be working very well,
No,
and is in a high volume offense.
right. Okay, now going over to the winning side here, Alex Eaton's Owings Mills Oysters taking the win, going to 5-2 now. Um, just looking at his squad here, Matt Jones with the surprising start with Russell Wilson and who's Trey Lance out this week. Putting up a respectable 22.818 points here. Um, you know, Going 5-2, obviously one of the favorites. You would say one of the two or three favorites to win the entire thing here, just with that record. And I think he's the points leader in the Beltway Wars Invitational. Pat, what did you take away from this matchup?
This Alex has to be very, very pleased with eking out this close win. Russell Wilson, obviously, still dealing with an injury. He's on IR. Kareem Hunt misses this game. He's on IR. And then, kind of looking forward, now he's got Devontae Adams, who had a nice day in this one. He's now on the COVID list. He'll miss week 8. So to be able to get a win now, especially considering you're going to be missing your wide receiver one next week, it feels good to get this close tight win. Mac Jones getting the spot start here, trying to fill the hole, the huge void left by Russell Wilson. It's a nice start here and a great matchup. They obviously put up 54 points against the Jets. Great matchup. Good that Alex saw that, and put him in the lineup and put his trust in him. 22 fantasy points. You look at 54. I think he might have got pulled a little bit early in that game. He probably could have done more had he not been pulled in a blowout. But certainly a
Yeah,
nice fantasy
84% of the
day.
snaps. Yep.
Yeah, so they pulled him at the end. But elsewhere got great production. We were talking about the barometer of how many guys can he get into double digits. Well, he got, I think, the same as Scott did. I think he's got all but 2 into double digits. The Cardinals had a nice game, only allowing 3 points to the Texans, so that's a 13 fantasy point day. Throwing Devontae Freeman in the flex spot, 11 fantasy points, only 4 carries and 3 receptions, but he scored. He got into the end zone for the Ravens. Nice kind of plug and play there in the flex with a guy that you've seen his role sort of steadily increase these last couple weeks as he's getting a chance to work himself into the Ravens offense. Another eat crow moment for me, I guess. Kyle Pitts comes back and has another huge day following up his week 5. Then he had a bye in week 6 and comes back out with 19 points against the Dolphins at the tight end spot. The volume is there. Matt Ryan seems to like him, and he's the 7th ranked tight end in fantasy. Um, so overall, just a great day. I guess we should, although I don't want to talk about the Ravens anymore. Marquise Brown, Hollywood, 5 for 14, not very good there,
No.
uh, but had the huge, 30 or 40 yard bomb. Made a terrific play in the end zone. Has a nice day here, 16 fantasy points, despite being very, very inefficient.
Yeah, I think that was more Lamar Jackson being inaccurate, just being there and witnessing it all. He was not sharp at all to the first half, but you do love to see that he's the main wide receiver in the Ravens offense, 14 targets. Anything over 10 is a welcome sight for you, especially with Marquise Brown could be considered your wide receiver three with Mike Williams on bye. So yeah, if you're getting 14 targets out of your wide receiver three, you got to be happy with that. Going back real quick just to Devontae Freeman here, I think he's going to be the running back that you want to have in Baltimore. Um, just looking at the corpse of Le'Veon Bell, my goodness, he looks
Mm.
slow. He does not hit the hole very fast. He doesn't. He's very um, he kind of like jumps around behind the line of scrimmage. Devontae Freeman is looks to be the most effective runner in the offense. I know it's only 4 for 14 here, but in past weeks, he's looked faster and more spry than Murray or Bell. So I think that's the running back you do want to have. And I don't know why they're not running Williams more than they are, but whatever. They know better than I. But yeah, just Alex had a great week, 5-2, great position that you want to be in through halfway through the season here. And the sky's the limit for this squad.
Yeah, well, let's also just look ahead here. The other thing I missed this too. He also has David Montgomery on IR. So this is a big performance to have with Wilson and Hunt and David Montgomery on IR. And then keep an eye. Michael Thomas they're saying he's not ready to return. He might be a couple weeks. We'll see. I mean, could this be a scenario in your mind, Adam, where Thomas could come back and within a couple weeks he could be a startable commodity for this team?
Hold on. I just clicked off it for some reason. I don't know why. Um, oh gosh, my computer's
He,
going crazy.
he's they're saying he's not ready to return, but he's a couple. They're saying a couple
Yeah.
weeks away.
So yeah, because I have him in Yahoo Sports and they're putting projections for him. So that means that that's coming back soon. You know, I guess you're throwing all three of those. I guess you're throwing him in the flex spot because you definitely want to keep Brown. You're keeping Adams in, and then you're keeping Mike Williams in. Um, Jalen Waddle. I mean, you still have bye weeks, so you do have to worry about that. Yeah, if Thomas comes back and to any form that he was with Drew Brees, watch out because this team could be putting up 140s, consistently. Um, yeah, definitely the team to watch here.
Yeah, might be a tricky week for Alex next week. Not sure who he faces, but does have Marquise Brown and Devontae Freeman on bye. So gonna
And he's
be
gonna miss Devontae Adams with COVID
and Devontae Adams. Yeah,
because they
so
play
it's
on
gonna
Thursday.
be
Yep.
that's right. It's gonna be a skeleton crew for Alex in a big week. Luckily, that again it goes back to getting this win, advancing to 5-2 gives you a little bit of breathing room to have an off week if you've got these injuries piling up. So a huge win for Alex. Definitely an important one. He's won 5 in a row too. He's 5-2. He's won his last 5. So that's pretty impressive.
Okay, and now going on to one of the most anticipated matchups of this week, the Hughes Bowl here. Sarah Hughes versus Josh Hughes. Josh taking the win here, not being chivalrous in his fantasy football matchup here. 99.02 to 95.44. Let's start with Josh's squad here. Looks like he had to start Daniel Jones with Josh Allen on a bye here. 17 points, not great, but you'll take that out of a quarterback too. Especially you'll take that on a win.
Yeah, you will. Man, tough one. Another close matchup, another close projection. So sleeper doing good work there on the projections. Um, had a nice game for Jonathan Taylor. He's quietly or not so quietly, I don't know. Quietly for me, he seems to still be undercovered because he plays for the Colts. But he had a 16-point fantasy game. He is the number 3 running back in the league. He's put up monster numbers over the last 4 weeks, especially in
Hmm.
some plus matchups there. So you like to see him succeed against defenses that allow a lot to the running backs. His schedule gets a little bit tougher Going to face some stout fronts in Tennessee and Buffalo and Tampa Bay in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
But
So
you do have New
um,
York and Jacksonville in there as well. So
yeah, a couple plus matchups, couple minus matchups there. So, um, but yeah, Daniel Jones, your point is good there. Got the what stands out here is the zero for uh, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wasn't able to get involved at all in that Browns. I'm sorry, the Lions offense. Naheem Hines had a bad game. Interesting decision here. I'm curious to see. I mean, he's starting Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines, both Colts running backs here. Hines did not do much. I don't know if he left that game. It seems like he's dealing with some type of an injury. Not sure if he left that, but didn't really leave too many points on the bench here. You're not starting Ronald Jones probably, even though he did have 10 carries,
yeah, I
fumbled the
know.
ball.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say.
and Johnu Smith, a castaway from my team. So I guess he didn't really have too many options. Had a lot of guys on bye or that were hurt, but that might be a scenario where I would try to have found somebody else. I think, but nevertheless, he gets the win here. Um,
On
what
a
else
not
to
so stellar
say?
day here. I mean, 99 points. That's a lower score on the spectrum of week 7 scores here, and you'll take it. You'll take the win for sure. But definitely some question marks here. Just what are you gonna do? You know, at wide receiver here. T.Y. Hilton's coming back. Uh, don't Johnson for the Steelers. Is going to be probably be slotted in here. It's just not a lot of depth here. Van Jefferson, you know, is he going to be continue to be, involved in the offense? He was at 94% snap count, so you'd
Wow.
love to see that. And also another thing you like to see, Zach Ertz. The new scenery here. Uh, three
Yeah.
three catches, 66 yards and a touchdown. He looked good on the touchdown reception in that blowout. So new scenery for him, and he looks like to be a fantasy commodity going forward here. Um, but yeah, you'll take it. You'll take a 99 total point victory here.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was catching touchdowns in Arizona, and he did that on just 49% of the snaps. Obviously, learning the playbook in Arizona, his first game there. Um, but nice to see, especially in a pinch with Gronk still dealing with his injury. Not sure when he's going to return. He may be back this week or next week, but nice to be able to stick Ertz in there. And really, you could look at Ertz as sort of the difference maker in this matchup. His 14 and a half fantasy points, that exceeded his projection by more points than Josh won this one by. So a nice pickup, a nice start, and Josh gets the win.
And there'll be no talking in the huge house, or maybe they'll fix the communication issue now that they're not facing each other in fantasy football this week. Now that their matchup's over. But going over to the losing side here, Sarah going to 2-5. Obviously not what you like to see here. Kyler having a pedestrian day, 21 points in terms of his fantasy production. But looking at the running backs, we've talked about this before in prior weeks. Miles Sanders, 6 carries again. What the heck is going on? They need to get Miles Sanders the ball. My goodness, uh, there's no better running back in
Hurt,
Philadelphia, and now he's hurt. So
hurt.
she's not going to be getting anything out of him. I don't even know how long he's going to be out. Maybe it's week to week. Yeah, it looks like it's week to
Yeah.
week. Chase Edmonds still yields some carries to James Conner, so it kind of puts a ceiling on his fantasy value. And that's the main thing with her squad is just the running back position is very very weak here. Um, but just before I let you speak, just talking about my favorite player on our team, Cordero Patterson again with a double digit points, 73% snap count, going higher and higher each week. 14 carries, 5 targets in receiving, had a touchdown rushing, 4.2 yards per carry. Love to see it. What did you think about Sarah's loss here?
Yeah, the Miles Sanders thing is unfortunate, especially coming up on next week's matchup against a Lions defense that has really had trouble stopping anything, but definitely stopping the run. They've given up a lot to running backs. The one stopgap that you have on the bench, you've got Brandon Bolden, for the Patriots, who he's sort of taking that James White role. You
Hmm.
you kind of wondered if he would, and he had a chance to. He caught 6 of 7 passes for 79 yards and got into the end zone. So if he can prove that he's capable of being, I don't know, 75% of what James White was to that offense, he's going to play some fantasy role as a week fill in or a bye week, um, or injury fill in here. So if Miles Sanders misses next week, Brandon Bolden, I guess you can comfortably plug and play him
I don't
against the
know about
Chargers defense.
comfortably, but I think that out of her bench, she does have Devin Singletary, so I think that you do probably slide him into the Miles Sanders role. Um,
Yeah.
but not a lot of depth there, and even Devin Singletary, he. And it seems like every week he's yielding more and more carries to Zach Moss up in Buffalo.
Yep. Absolutely. Just a couple other points to note
Yeah,
here. We've talked about it before with Tyreek Hill. Not a huge game for him. It's just 6 for 9 for 49 yards, only one carry. So not really terribly effective in this one in a big loss, in a shocking loss, really,
oh yeah,
at
3 points.
Tennessee.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty amazing to watch the score tick up for the Titans, and the Chiefs were stuck at 0 for the longest time, I think, in that one. So when Tyreek Hill struggles, Sarah's team struggles, and that was the case this week. Kyler Murray also, he's good. Um, he's good. He's good.
yes,
He's got 21 fantasy points. He's the number 3 quarterback. But you would, man, you kind of look at his day here. He threw 3 touchdowns. 21 fantasy points is good, but not great. You hope in a matchup like that, where they score 31 points, that he maybe can throw more than 28 times. He didn't need to,
right.
but it just, you'd like to see, these are the ones that you got to run up when you're a quarterback here, and
Yeah,
it was the difference in this one.
and
The
you're
last,
also well. Was one thing. Let's stick on Murray here. You had to have expected more rushing when you drafted him. I mean, last 3 weeks, 1 yard, 6 yards, 10 yards. Like
mm,
I mean, if I was to draft Murray, what was he? Probably the third quarterback off the board, most likely. Probably it was probably Mahomes, Allen, then him. I would venture to take a guess. You're hoping for at least 50 yards, 60 yards. He
yeah,
hasn't eclipsed over 40 yards this whole season. So
that's right.
that's kind of, Sarah's team's going to go with where Murray goes. And you were really hoping for that rushing totals to be more like Lamar Jackson, where, he pops off for 80 yards one week and really, limits the floor of what his, fantasy point total will be. But just haven't seen it yet.
It's a good point. He scored rushing touchdowns in each of his first 3 games. He went over. Let's see. He was 20 points or over 3 of his first 4 games, but the last 3 weeks, 0 touchdowns, 1 yard, 6 yards, 10 yards. So he's really not doing anything in the running game. And that's, I guess, kind of what I was trying to say, that you said better than I could, that you expect, instead of a 21 fantasy point day, you get up to 25, 26
Right.
with those rushing numbers, and all of a sudden,
That
you
makes the
know,
difference in the
you
week.
might have a win instead of a loss. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing that would have made a difference here, starting the Bears at
Yeah.
Tampa Bay with Brady playing the way he was playing, question that decision a little bit.
Interesting.
Probably would have been looking for a bye week, or not a bye week fill in, but a fill in for the Bears in a very, very tough matchup.
Yeah, I don't see any other defense on her squad. Yeah, that just had to be an oversight. Um, 408 yards allowed. They have a fumble recovery, but 38 points -1. Even with the revamped, defensive totals, that scoring that we did, still going in the negatives. Um, just a regular day, and that puts her in the win column. So, yep, definitely should have. Definitely, I mean, if Chicago's her regular defense, definitely should have streamed a different defense
Yep.
on there. Okay, going on to our next matchup here. I keep clicking off it, so let's go to your matchup, shall we?
Mm.
Okay, Baltimore Bay Raiders get the win over the very, very struggling Hellbringers. Now 3-4. Did you start 1-4? Are you on a two-game win streak?
I am. I've won two in a row.
You're back in it here. Um, let's start with you here. 128, pretty good week, and you had some interesting starts because of bye weeks. So why don't you go over your team here?
Yeah, I was down a couple guys. Dak Prescott was out this week on bye, and so you had asked me about Taylor Heineke last week, and he did what I picked him up to do. I picked him up a couple weeks early, anticipating this matchup or this bye week, and Heineke um, took a loss to the Packers, but it did end up scoring 20 fantasy points. So as far as I'm concerned, as a bye week fill in, that's plenty good. Good enough here. Was also missing Antonio Brown, who missed this game with an injury. So kind of filling the holes here. Starting my stud wide receivers who have not all been studly all year, but AJ Brown finally gets a nice fantasy day. I think his best of the season, 23 fantasy points, 8 for 9 for 133 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley and Robert Woods were serviceable in this one. But the three of those guys scoring in double figures has me hopeful for their outlooks. All heavily targeted in their offenses, so good to see there. Kind of happy that Ricky Seals Jones is turning out to
Hmm.
be serviceable. Finally, may have found a tight end that I can feel a little bit better about plugging in there. He's had a couple decent weeks, and he's going to fill that spot a little bit.
Right.
Also, starting the Saints defense here, they get me 11 points, while my Broncos put those guys on the bench in a tough matchup against Cleveland. So that turned out to be a decent call.
Yeah, just going on Ricky Seals Jones, in that Washington offense, there's not a lot of options. So that was a little sneaky pickup that you did there. 7 targets out of the tight end, you gotta love it. Even though it was only 51 yards, um, you you can't score points if you're not targeted. So 7 targets out of the tight end position is always a welcome sight. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Little, we'll keep with the positives for right now. Taylor Heineke, 10 carries for 95 yards. He's having the carries that Kyler Murray should get in the
Yeah,
yard in
that's
the
right.
rushing yardage. So, that's kind of interesting to see. If Dak does go down for a week or two, it does look like Heineke could be a viable spot start. Just if he's continuing to get that rushing ability. I haven't really looked at his numbers real closely here. Yeah, 10 carries is the most he's had all year, but look at week 5, 40 yards, 43 yards, 21 yards in rushing. So, that's free points right there, a point per 10 yards. So, anytime you get that out of a quarterback is great to see.
Well,
Uh,
if Adam has convinced you, you're feel free to pick him up. I've dropped him since the
oh,
end of the week. So he's available against the tough Denver defense and then on bye. So have at him.
One thing I'll will mention here is somewhat of a concern. Darrell Williams, you know,
Mm.
against a plus matchup here against Tennessee, 5 carries for 20 yards. They really did nothing out of the running backs position for Kansas City. Even Jerick McKinnon, who I dropped, wasn't involved at all in the offense. It seems that like since Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been out, that they're just going to put everything on Patrick Mahomes' shoulders. And if Sunday's any indication, that is not going to work because Pat Mahomes did not look good. That whole offense just looks dysfunctional right now, and I don't really know what the remedy is. Um, so that's just something that that was a great pickup when you pick him up, but I think you might have to temper expectations with him.
Well, this was, I think, more the exception than the rule. Tennessee played their minds out against the Chiefs on this one, and their defense really stymied everything that Kansas. I didn't watch any of this game, but I mean, just look at the totals here. Only had 5 carries. I mean, I don't know what was going on with that offense, but they are entering a matchup against the Giants that they probably will try to take out all of their built up, pent up frustrations on the Giants. It wouldn't surprise me if they score 40 or 50 points in that game. I think they're going to be out for revenge, trying to come out of a huge shocking loss to prove that
Hmm.
they are an elite team. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these guys have some healthier numbers next week. And I think Edwards-Helaire, you would know, right? I think you own Edwards-Helaire. He's going to be a couple more weeks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not really sure. It was a MCL sprain. Um, they're not really sure if he's going to come back right when he's eligible to come back. He is definitely designated for return, but you might get a few more extra weeks out of Williams. So definitely like to see it. Running backs are a commodity. Anytime you can get a running back that gets the lion's share of the carries on the free agent, bundle or the free agent bin, is always a good thing to do.
Yeah,
Um,
one other thing that I'm happy about here on the bench quietly, Michael Carter has sort of
mhm.
what they're saying is he's really starting to assume kind of the not the bell cow role, but the lead role for the Jets after he started the season kind of splitting work. He's starting to get more consistent workload. His snap percentage is up to 72. His previous high was 52. So he did well in this game, not running for a highly efficient rate, but did catch 8 of 9 in the air. So he's getting more work, and he could be a guy, that I slide in there at some point.
Right, and definitely with Mike White starting at quarterback now for at least the next couple weeks, you had to think that they're going to run the ball more, try to establish the run. So he's definitely going to be a viable option for you in the next couple weeks.
Yep.
Going over to Mike's team here, the disappointing season continues. 10 points under his projected total. Just problems all around. We've been talking about it all year here. That second running back position, Sony Michel, 2 carries, 4 yards. Didn't get Kenny Galladay out of the starting lineup. He had a 0. He was a late scratch uh, for the Giants here, and just really just disappointments all down the board here. Um, like, I mean, I don't know. He had Keenan Allen on bye. He had Stephon Diggs on bye, so that's obviously going to hurt. But what did you see? Am I missing something? Is this team really a 1-6 team, or are they the exact record that they should be?
Uh, hard to say. I mean, Mike has just had bad luck from the draft right after the draft with ETN, and continues to have bad luck just with injuries across the board. Barkley now missing another game here. Um, Not sure what his status is, but it's not looking good. Curiously, wasn't able to get Devontae Booker into the lineup, filling in for Barkley. Probably just looking at the team, could have slotted him in here for any number of guys. Sony Michel probably absolutely would have started Booker there. Um, he's got Kenny Galladay darting in this one. I believe, did he play? He was out, so didn't quite
He was a
get the
late scratch.
news. He was
Yeah.
a late scratch, yeah. So didn't quite get the memo. Left Galladay in there, took a 0. So unlike some of the other folks that we were talking about who had 2 players that were less than 10, he had 2 players that were over 10. Lamar Jackson, 23 points, and Kenyon Drake coming from the dead. Um, Ken, Kenyon Drake, the curious case of Kenyon Drake, after some really underwhelming weeks, he puts up 20 points last week and 15 points this week, has a
Hmm.
bye in week 8, and then some plus matchups. So uh, he, who knows with him? He's kind of a toss up,
Yeah.
boom or bust.
I
Um,
yeah, I will say that on the bench here, he does have Khalil Herbert for Chicago here. Got 17%, 77% of the snaps. I don't know why he wasn't started. Maybe the matchup kind of scared him against Tampa Bay here, but did get 18. touches for 100 yards here. Should be in the starting lineup next week, probably for Tyler Higbee, who another team that's starting two tight ends here. Um, but you put in Barkley back in. If he's not playing, you put in Devontae Booker, where Sony Michelle. He is what he is. Unless something happens to Henderson, he's not going to be of any value. So, looking at his team, there are some bright spots here. I mean, you still have Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs, and Herbert's going to be pretty good for the next couple of weeks while Montgomery is out, and uh, I think it's Damon Williams. Damon Williams. It's
Yeah, yeah.
another Williams. I think he's out for, or he might be actually be coming back this week. He had like COVID, and then he had like a hammy or something. So we'll have to look at that news. But there are some talented players on the bench here that could slide in for him in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, the one kind of guy that, and I've got him in another league that has been a little bit disappointing is Devontae Smith. Um, for as much as he's playing, I mean, if you look at his snap percentage, he's in the 80s and 90s in every single game. He's the 37th ranked wide receiver for a guy who I guess is their number one. Granted, he's a rookie, but you just expect that there's something that's just not clicking with the Eagles. They're not winning
Yep.
very many games, but you just kind of are hoping that this guy, and he's kind of like you're starting him because he's got so much potential, and his projections every week are pretty good, but he just kind of underwhelms in these Eagles games.
Yeah. Usually the Eagles get like behind in games, and then Jalen Hurts just starts using his legs. It's very odd.
Mm.
There's not a lot of production that comes from the wide receiver positions when they're in comeback mode. The Eagles, I mean, I I there's been actually some talk that they might bench Jalen Hurts because of his struggles through the air and throwing the ball. That would be kind of interesting, as Jalen Hurts is, he's on my team and he's the number two ranked quarterback in fantasy football. So that'd be kind of interesting. But I don't. Yeah, you got to roll him out. 9 targets. He's the first option for the Eagles. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know, but
tough.
yeah, it's been a tough road for Mike in his inaugural year in the Beltway Wars Invitational, and he does have some talent to kind of bring the season back, but he's going to need some things to go his way, uh, especially in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, on the plus side, look, he's got Lamar Jackson on bye this week, but he's got Joe Burrow in a good matchup, I think, against the Jets, who can have shown that they can be completely destroyed on any given Sunday.
Hmm.
So you slide Burrow in there. You've got Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs, two of your elite wide receivers, now done with their buys for the season. So they're both back slotted into the lineup. You get a couple of these upstart running backs in Booker and Herbert in there. And who knows? I mean, maybe he gets hot for a couple weeks and, probably needs to come close to winning out to have a shot. Sometimes what
Yeah.
7-6 is what you kind of need to do. So pretty much needs to win out here, but
Well,
who
do
knows?
we have an extra week, or is it just added on to the playoffs?
I think we added it on to
Okay,
the
so the
playoffs.
regular season
Still 13 weeks.
still 13 weeks. Okay, so yeah, 7-6 is usually the cutoff. So he's really gonna need to turn it on here.
Yeah.
Uh, that's interesting. Okay, so with that matchup, we're going on to the next matchup here. Unfortunately, we're getting to my matchup here, where I lost to Charlie Wynn's Reisterstown Rebels, 147.64 to 98.54. When I was going through the weekly recaps of that Sleeper automatically puts out, I utilized all my points that I could have had. If you look at my bench here, I had
Mm,
basically everyone on IR or on bye. So that was unfortunate for me
yeah.
here. But just I got really, really bad luck with my running backs here as I had to start Mark Ingram and Jarek McKinnon with Dalvin Cook and Zach Moss being on bye. Nothing out of them, and that kind of sunk my week. in Week 7.
Yeah, I didn't look at this until now, but man, oh man, ouch! Between injuries and buys, you were pretty devastated this week.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, there's some strategy, back 10 years ago, probably, I used to be one of those guys that was checking the bye weeks. And, it was never clear to me whether the best strategy was to stack your bye weeks or to sort of separate them out and spread the losses. I'm kind of thinking that it's better to stack them and just take a loss like this. Um, Especially, you can't be too mad about it that you've got some of your studs now past the bye, guys like Dalvin Cook, Zach Moss, Amari Cooper, who are week in and week out starters for you, that are now over their bye, and you take the loss. Even if
Well,
those guys played, scoring
right.
scoring enough to beat Charlie's team this week is probably not going to be very feasible. So you sort of take the lump on this one and just
I didn't
move
play with
on.
4 out of my first 5 draft picks.
Yeah, I'm doing that in another
So
league.
it was
It's not fun.
I didn't play with Cooks, I didn't play with Kittle, I didn't play with um, Edwards-Helaire or Amari Cooper, and then I had
Right.
Lockett in the 5th round, I think.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about Tyler Lockett, and it's
Yeah,
probably a sore subject.
yeah, it is.
Started the season out really well, and just since then, man, it's not like he's not playing. I mean, he's in the 80s in his
Yeah,
snap count. It's just, and now without Russell Wilson, his targets are down now that Russell Wilson is out. So, I mean, you got to probably think about benching him.
definitely has crossed my mind. Gino cannot get the ball down the field. I don't know if you watched any of that Monday night game, the Saints in Seattle. He what looked so bad. The only reason, so he can throw it to DK because he's so big. The catch radius is crazy with Metcalf. He catches anything that you throw around him. But with Lockett, you got to be more precise, and he's the deep ball threat here. Gino can't throw it more than 30 yards. So yeah, I'm really concerned here. Doing my voodoo to try to bring Russell Wilson back as quickly as possible. Um, my only question is who do I have better that I could plug in here? Am I plugging in Michael Gallup? Am I plugging in Hunter Renfro? Then trying to play another? I just have very limited options with who I want to play at. Especially wide receiver here. Um, yeah, it's just it sucks.
Yeah, he may be starting by default with Renfro unavailable with a bye in
Yep.
week 8. And then Lockett goes into his bye in week 9. So, yeah, you just got to hope and pray that he's
I
able
just get a long one.
to succeed. Yep,
A
exactly.
slant route, a 5 yard slant that goes for 70 yards. That's what I'm kind of hoping
Yep,
for.
yep.
But yeah,
Well, I mean, I think, once you get healthy, if you can keep playing 500 ball, you're 4-3. You're currently in the playoff hunt. Obviously, once you get George Kittle back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, you'll be able to make a playoff push, I think, and you'll have enough guys healthy, hopefully, by the end of the season to make that final push. And Kittle, I think he's due back soon.
yes, after week 9.
Gotcha.
So
So
I
that'll
got one
help.
more week without him. And
Yep.
they did say, and Shanahan did say today that he will be back once he comes off IR. So no law there.
Yep.
Going over to the winning side here, Charlie. I think he started 3-0, or I think he lost 2 straight. I think this is the end of the losing streak, actually. A 147 day out of him, even with Patrick Mahomes having a very, very mediocre day against a Tennessee Titans team that you can definitely score against 206 yards and an interception and a fumble. Not a great day, but everyone else, picked up the slack and was able to carry Charlie to a win.
Yeah, a lot to like here. I mean, still missing your top 2 running backs, both of them on IR, McCaffrey and Carson. He's got enough of a deep team here that he's able to start Damian Harris for the Patriots and get a huge day, 24 points, and James Conner, who had a nice 10 carry, 64-yard one touchdown day for
Mm-hmm.
12 points. So missing your elite running backs, but have more than capable fill-ins here, that is going to help you win these weeks with injuries and bye weeks hitting at the same time. The receivers, Godwin and Cup, both, again, Godwin benefiting from Antonio Brown missing this one, 21 fantasy points. He went 8 for 11, 111 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp back to his dominant early season production, 32 fantasy points in a very plus matchup against the Lions. Um, and actually, if you look at Cooper Kupp, so we've been talking about him a lot. If you look at his game log and you see these green and red, he has faced all green opponents, all opponents that have been bad against the wide receiver up to this point, his first 7 weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
he's taken full advantage of it. The number one wide receiver points wise in the league. Huge day here and helps him put up this gaudy point total. The
And
other
just one more thing on Cooper here. And the next three matchups: Houston, Tennessee, and San Fran. All teams you can throw on. So the rich just get richer in terms of having Cooper Cup.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's been huge, and he's a huge reason why Charlie's 5-2 here and had such a great start to the year. The other kind of nice play here that was kind of surprising and a great decision was starting CJ Uzama against the Ravens. This is a guy who's been around the league now for a little bit. He kind of gets flashes. He's never kind of the main guy, but he's starting to become somewhat of a main guy despite not getting a whole lot of volume, but he's making the most of his opportunities here. Just 3 targets, caught all 3 of them for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Ravens. So nice play here to slot Uzama in with Knox, Dawson Knox on a bye. Thought it was a good play, and it worked out for him.
Yeah, just again being at that game, Uzama looked like Shannon Sharp out there running wide open in the Ravens secondary. Obviously, a great play by him to pull that off. 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. You will take that out of any pass catcher that you're going to start in any week. Um,
Yep.
Going forward here, I'm going to ask the question. It might be ridiculous, it might not be. How concerned are you with Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs offense?
I'm not.
You're not
I'm
at
not.
all?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Let's let
Did Mahomes leave this game? Did he leave this game early with an injury,
I
or
think they
was did?
benched him. Or no, he was concussed. Yeah,
Oh,
he was concussed. All
okay,
right. Yeah, he took a hit in the head Sunday's blowout loss to the Tennessee Titans.
okay.
He did
So
clear the concussion protocol though. So
yeah, I mean,
so
he's still elite. He's gone over 30 points
right.
twice. He's usually over 20 points. He throws the ball a ton. It's kind of the same thing here. I think he's well, he is doing work on the ground. I mean,
Right.
he's doing it. I'm not worried. He's the fourth ranked quarterback, and I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, so this is a situation because I was trying to bait you to say, yeah, you were kind of concerned, but of course I didn't. This is kind of a situation where it was kind of like Sarah's position, but the opposite, where, he drafted Pat Mahomes very high in the draft, but, with how deep his team is and how they're producing, you can, survive one of these weeks where he doesn't need to put the whole team on his back and score, 35 points to get you a win. Where Sarah's team, Kyler kind of needs to go off for her team to be successful. So just a great draft job by Charlie. Really rounded out the draft really well. Just now looking back 7 weeks into the league or the season here, um, just a masterful job.
Yeah, the only thing I could point to, I'm looking at his totals, his game logs from 2020 compared to 2021. 2020, he played a full complement of games. He played in
Are we
all
looking
of
at
his
Mahomes?
team's games. Yep, Mahomes. He threw interceptions in 4 of those 16 games. Okay, this year he has thrown interceptions in each of his last 6 games.
Yep.
So he's throwing more interceptions, and That's the difference. He's got 3 games with 2 interceptions. Those are games where he has 22 fantasy points, 18 fantasy points, 22 fantasy points. So if he just cleans up some of those mistakes, those 22, 20-point games start to turn into 24, 26, 28-point games, and
Hmm.
suddenly those totals get a little bit better. So,
And he's also, I don't, this is kind of a small caveat, but he's reached his fumble total as well as last year. So, you know, I think that, with the injuries at running back for the Chiefs, I think he's just trying to do way too much right now. He's trying to
yeah,
force balls in. He's trying to do too much with his legs. I mean, as you're looking here, I mean, 6 attempts, 8 attempts, 5 attempts,
yeah,
61 yards, 31. So he's running the ball. I mean, he's taking the ball in
yep,
his hands. Um, I I do agree with you. I do think it gets better here, especially with his matchups here. The Giants, yeah, they're going to torch them. Green
yeah.
Bay, that's probably going to be a shootout, and Vegas, a division rival, obviously, really going to air it out there. Um, it's just kind of odd to see this many turnovers with Pat Mahomes, who's usually very careful with the ball.
Yep.
Okay, and going over to it's our last matchup here. Jake Krieger, Cumberland Crusaders, with the win here, now going to 6-1, the best record in the league, over Brian Morgan's Timonium Tallywhackers, who now goes to 3-4. Let's start with Jake here. As we've been singing Jake's praises all year for taking Matthew Stafford, 27-point total. Another great day against in a plus matchup. Looking down the board here, Miles Gaskins, I know he's your favorite player ever. Has a good day here, 15 carries, 67 yards, 4 catches and a touchdown there. Um, you know, and then okay days out of the wide receivers here. Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore, 7 targets, 10 targets. I'd like to see that. Um, with Justin Jefferson on bye to get a win, you'd like to see it.
Yeah, it doesn't light up the scoreboard here. Had some receivers struggle in this one. Just checking the buys. Had a starting running back in James Robinson on bye this week. Had Justin Jefferson, an elite wide receiver on bye this week. So nice to come out of this one with a win. Struggled with guys like Darnell Mooney. Brandon Cook struggled in this one as they got blown out by the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really, this has kind of put this team on to Alvin Kamara's back this week and run with it. 28 points, had a huge day, lots of volume, 20 carries, and then 11 targets. So very
Yeah.
involved in both phases. Just kind of a put it on your stud and run with it. And, you mentioned Miles Gaskin sort of back from the dead here. He kind of ebbs and flows in this season. He kind of is boom or bust, and this was a boom week for him. Has the most rushing attempts that he's had all year in this one and puts up 15 fantasy points. So nice day, not a great day for Jake, but great to get a win and advance to 6-1. We said earlier it takes 7 wins to sort of be in the mix there on the bubble. He's already got 6 of them, so plenty of time. Jake is looking like still a favorite to potentially win this league.
Yeah. So, good week, 120, with your first 2 picks on buy, or I guess your first pick or second pick on buy. My question is going to, where I just saw his name, Josh Gordon. It's now been 3 weeks that he's been in this Chiefs offense here. He's not involved at all. Um, is it time to cut ties with him? I mean, you'd hope to see a little more out of him than 10%, 13%, 11%, targeted twice in 3 weeks. Um, is it time to cut ties with him, or is the upside too great here?
I I can't remember if he was a waiver claim or a free agent pickup. I
I
don't know
can
how
tell you
much.
that.
I mean, I'll
Waivers.
ask. He was a waiver. Did how many claims did he have?
I have no idea. It was just added from waivers on September 28th.
Well, let's see. I mean, I think you and I are both guys that have jockeyed over the Josh Gordon sweepstakes over the last half a decade,
Right.
whenever he becomes available, or there's a
He gets
report that said
suspended.
he's going to get off the exempt list.
Right.
Savvy players in fantasy will go find him and dig him out of the junk pile and put him on the roster to
Yeah.
see what happens. But let me ask you, when you saw that he was coming back, how long did it take for you to say not interested?
It did not take me long,
Yeah.
actually. There, it's different if he goes to a team where they don't have a lot of options. He goes
Mm,
to Kansas City is probably one of the worst places in terms of fantasy that he could go.
mm,
You got Tyreek Hill, you got Travis Kelsey, even Nikhil Hardman. Gets looks passing. He's more of that like um, that number three role with Byron Pringle and
mm.
that kind Demarcus Robinson kind of area. It's just not going to be consistent. You know, 10%, 13%, 11%. You'd like to see that way more than that. He's only 30 years old, which seems like he's been around for 20 years now. Um, if you would have went to a different spot, maybe not with so many options. I'm trying to think of like a place that he could go that, if he went to like Houston, let's say,
Yeah.
where like there's not a lot of fantasy options there. I think that he had more value, but in this offense, there's too many mouths to feed. I think, and
Yeah.
he's at best the fourth option on that team. So I just don't know how many looks he's going to get week in and week out.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, he's not even playing any snaps. You got to drop. He's only owned in 12% of leagues. I think there's a better chance that he will get suspended again than a chance that he becomes a fantasy relevant player in this
Right.
league. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but if you've got a roster spot and you don't need it, and you're 6-1, and you have the luxury of not needing that spot, then whatever, that's fine.
Right.
But we'll see.
Yeah. All right, now going over to the losing side here, Ryan Morgan now falling to 3-4 here, 85.98 points here. Looking at a squad here, Aaron Jones, disappointing day with what the score was in Washington. Nikhil Hardman, who we were just talking about here, 5 targets, only 20 yards and a fumble, really hampered his day. Allen Robinson continues to be a disappointment. Please, let's talk about Allen Robinson for a second. Last, let's just do 4 weeks here. 69% snap count, 83, 92, 94. No targets. Who else do they have in that offense that they should be throwing to? Allen Robinson, should be a top 20 wide receiver in this league in terms of fantasy, and now he's 59. Talk about people to you might want to cut ties with. Is it time to give up on Allen Robinson?
No, no, just because he gets the snap, so you hope that he figures it out.
Is it
Um,
more him or is it the offense though?
I don't know. I don't watch enough Bears games to know, but it's probably some
That was
combination of
on the
both.
homework sheet, Pat, to watch the Bears Tampa Bay game to tell me if Allen Robinson is fixable or not.
That was a practice game for the Buccaneers offense. That was not even a contest. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, his snap percentage is high. I mean, he's in the 90s.
Right.
He's just, you can't cut ties with him. He's even hard to bench just because of the draft capital that you spent on him, and maybe there's not a whole lot of better options on the bench. Between him and Odell Beckham,
Yeah.
they're kind of in the same category here. They've got talent. They've got talent. They're a little bit long in the tooth now, both of those guys, but they just, I don't know. It's a coin toss for me between those two guys.
Right.
Um, I guess I kind of feel about Brian's week the same way I feel a little bit about you. Brian also had some bye issues here. His starting quarterback, Herbert, Austin Eckler with the Chargers as well, and CeeDee Lamb, one of his top flight wide receivers, all on bye this
And even
week.
Cole Beasley.
So, yeah, and Cole Beasley. Can't forget about Cole Beasley. Maybe he was spending it getting vaccinated, but probably not.
I highly doubt it.
But you're facing one of the best teams in the league. You have all your bye weeks
Right.
this week, so you kind of just take the loss and move on. The bright spot here, you're going to be starting Herbert most weeks, but nice to see Tua have a nice day. Four
Yeah.
touchdowns for the Dolphins in kind of a high scoring game versus the Falcons. He was 32 for 40 for 291 and four touchdowns. Also ran for 30 yards. Did throw two picks, so could have been an even bigger day. But nice to see, and he may just be a 1 week fill in, but I guess keep him around in case something happens to Herbert, and maybe he'll be valuable at some
Yeah,
point.
I would say the bright spot for Brian here is Fournette continues to be the number one back in on Tampa Bay. We all know how potent that offense is, and it seems like he's finally wrestled it away from Ronald Jones, who continues to fumble the ball. I think he's the most trusted back in that backfield. Um, and at the beginning of the year, it looked 8 points, 9 points, 4 points, but over the last 4 weeks, 15, 19, 27, 16. So I think he's finally that number one back that you could play him as the second, running back behind Aaron Jones for Brian here. So you love to see that. Like you said, I think it's a bad week just with the amount of buys that he had, and it didn't help that. Again, we'll end it with this note: Baltimore scoring a -4 in our revamped defensive points, 520 yards allowed. My God, Ray Lewis is rolling over in his bed in Miami somewhere. Um,
Yeah,
looking at that.
well, I kind of want to ask you, and
Yeah.
it's a good note to end on, and it's kind of an interesting thing that I've been thinking about. I don't know how you feel, but I have been thinking that this year more than any other year, with the way the offenses are just putting up points all across the league, and it's been a trend that's been growing. I don't know how we compare at this point in the season to other previous couple years, but
Yeah.
I don't get the sense that there is really any must start defense left in the league. I don't think that is a thing anymore in the
Right.
NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we played, on ESPN in the beginning here, you'd have the Bears or the Ravens or,
Right.
Pittsburgh, and those were defenses that you played week in and week out no matter what the matchup was because you knew that they were going to get above 10 points, which was, always the starting points for defenses there. Um, Defenses are a very finicky thing, you have to kind of weigh with the talent on defense with who they're playing against. Sometimes the best streaming option isn't always the best option just because their defense is so bad and they don't have any talent on the defensive side of the ball. So it doesn't matter how bad the offense they're going against, it's just their defense is so bad. So I would say it's kind of a very like it's a very like look into your crystal ball sort of notion in terms of defenses trying to pick who you're gonna play there and against who. But you just hate to see 520 yards allowed. My goodness, uh,
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
it's kind of to me feeling almost like kickers where it's you can kind of like look at, oh, well, kicker's in a dome, so he's
Hmm.
got a better chance, but beyond that, like,
Yeah.
you don't you're some I've just been shocked with defenses performances when I thought they'd be good and they were terrible, or got teams that
Right.
are pitching a 3 point near shutout, and you're like, really? Like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? But I don't know.
Yeah. So
Tough to
going to
predict.
yeah, tough break for him. Obviously anytime you get a negative is hard, but so that rounds us out here in terms of the week 7 scores and matchups. And did you want to look at week 8 or do you just want to end it here?
Yeah, let's take a quick look and just see if
Okay.
there's any interesting storylines here. So I'm going up against Brian. We're both
Hmm.
3-4, so it's an important matchup. The projections are pretty close. It could be a high-scoring game. I think we're both fairly healthy, and for the most part, I think we're both sort of avoiding bye weeks this week. So it's going to be a pretty full-strength matchup there.
Hmm.
So it'll be tough. It'll be close. We'll see what happens. You're taking on Tom's team in
Yep.
another what looks like could be a close matchup.
Yeah, he has a lot of great matchups. I was taking a look at it earlier today. Should be pretty close. I don't know who I'm starting at quarterback. It could be Hurts. Hurts against Detroit. You gotta love that. But how do you not play Brady? I have the number one and number two ranked quarterbacks, so you got to play one of them. Um, just like looking down the board here, I think Mike against Dustin here is Mike gonna start his comeback here of railing off six straight wins to get to 7-6? It could happen against Dustin here, who's he has Teddy Bridgewater starting at quarterback right now. So I said he should start Winston, but he look for right now anyway. He's gonna go with Bridgewater.
Yep, yep. So we'll see how that fares. Dustin's got a healthy point total projection listed there at 136. Pretty nice. I think that the highest of the bunch here.
Hmm.
Um, Charlie going up against Josh.
Yeah.
And that right now, Josh with the projection. Don't know if those rosters are updated, but that's an important one for Josh. He's kind of in the middle of the pack in our division. I'm kind of creeping up from behind. Jake is sort of running away with it here now.
Right.
So I don't know. It'd be a nice win if Josh could take down Charlie. And Charlie is definitely sitting there wondering when he's going to get McCaffrey and Carson back, and hoping he can get there fairly unscathed. But
Hmm.
we will see. Um, Jake going up against Sarah here in what could it's projected at least right now to be somewhat of a close matchup. Um,
Hmm.
this could Sarah pull off an upset here? Maybe, and she's not out of it yet. She's two and
Yeah.
five. She could put together a couple wins and be back in the hunt.
Yeah. I think it again. I'll keep on harping on it. I think that team goes with Kyler Murray, and does he put on a show Thursday night against Green Bay? I
Yeah,
think that's the question. So I think she'll
yeah,
know early if that week's going to go in her favor or not.
yep. And then rounding out the slate here with Scott against Alex.
Hmm.
Alex, not sure if he has set the lineup here yet. He's a little bit low. Oh, he's missing Devonte Adams on Thursday, so got to get him out of that lineup and
Yep.
slot somebody in. Probably going to slot in. Let's see. Boy, I don't know that he's got a whole lot of great options here in terms of who he's slotting in there.
No, he
So,
does not.
um,
Trying to look. Um, yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. He's going to have to pick somebody up.
yep, potentially. I don't know that you're starting Jared Cook against New England.
Yeah.
Tough one. So,
All right. Well, that about wraps it up here with today's show. Happy Halloween, everybody. We will see you in week 8 to go over, the week 8 results here. And anything you want to leave us with, Pat?
not at all. Let's move into the sort of second half of the season here, and we'll see what happens. Shake it up.
All right. We will see you all next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.